Title: Xiao misses you for a long time. Author: Juduxing Copy. Childhood Sweethearts, Tuowei Secret Love. The three middle schools are well known that the student council president Tang Qishan is cold and arrogant and self-controlled, and cannot be easily approached. Until the forum exploded. The elementary school girl was chatting, pushing all the homework she didn't know in front of him, and then there was no one around to doze off. The classmates couldn't help but sneered, "Where's the brainless fangirl? It's just dead." Informed friend, "Oh, don't die." Tang Qishan took her like a daughter. No, it's clearly a child bride." Shi Luo was ashamed and angry on the surface, but he had the courage to express his heart to him in private, but only got a faint rejection. "What happened to the school flower? It's not like I'm tired of playing and throw it away." The man who has always been too calm suddenly lost his mind and became ruthless. Then he pressed Shi Luo into his arms and begged in a hoarse voice, "Don't be afraid, can you come home with me?" No one knew. That night he kissed her wet eyes and said solemnly, "When you grow up, you can only rely on me." Small theater, holidays, the living room of the Tang family villa. Shi Luo was wearing pink pajamas and leaning on Tang Qishan sleepily. The girl glanced at the cake, and softly wrapped her small hands around his neck. "I want to eat it. However, the sticky little cat is coquettish, kiss me." The apprentice who happened to come to get the materials of the past year was shocked and ran away. Shi Luo flushed with shame and covered his face tightly. He hoarsely said, "Are you still kissing?" The little cat in her arms shook her head wildly. His voice was deep, "No." The man could not help pinching her chin with his big hands, lowered his head and kissed her lips deeply. The school forum exploded that night. Number: Thank you for the invitation. I have been in the same class, and I saw the president eat the leftovers from her meal. Number: Call her little ancestor to know about it at the exchange meeting. Number: I have a friend who said that he wanted a kissing photo of the elder brother of Kong Kong. Number 1. Gao Leng is cool for a while, chasing his wife crematorium. 2. Double First Love, Double Secret Love, Sweet Pet Soul Liao. 3. 1v1, Double C Content Tags, Tianzi Tianwen. Search keywords: Protagonist, Shi Luo, Tang Qishan. Supporting role, Witty Assist Team. Others, Tianwen. At the beginning of June, Hengshi failed for the 8th summer. It passed by, with a little bit of cold air. It has been 2 days since Shi Luo didn't write papers and was caught playing games secretly in the middle of the night by Tang Qishan. For 2 days, Shi Luo didn't even see Tang Qishan's face, and the girl who always liked to go to Tang's house for a meal was guilty of taking a detour every time she went to school. Last night at 3 o'clock in the morning, for the first time, she did not read the novel of Digging the Heart and the Kidney, but took her best friend Yesun together to discuss how to admit mistakes and self-repent. Yesungsun had only seen Shi Luo collapse in front of Tang Qishan in her life. The easiest way, the ancients' method: 1 cry, 2 troubles, 3 hangs. Come, you cry with him first. Shi Luo: I cried, but it was useless. He asked me if I had enough tears. If not enough, lend me some salt water. Yesungsun: Ah, if this is the case, then there will be trouble. Shi Luo: It's been a mess. Even my WeChat friends directly blocked him for honest op service. Yesungsun was astonished. She didn't see him for a few days. She was able to endure it, and even took the initiative to delete Tang Qishan's WeChat. What about the result? Shi Luo puffed out his cheeks and ate a potato chip. As a result, he still hasn't passed my friend application. Pfft, it was still that unpromising look. Yesungsun couldn't help laughing. Yesungsun: Then, come on, hanging is impossible. You don't know how fierce Tang Qishan is. I accidentally knocked on my knee when I was playing with my mobile phone while walking. When he treated my wound, his expression was cold, as if he wanted to cut off my leg. Tisk, that's not because they feel sorry for you. Yesungsun was eating dog food alone. Shi Luo opened his mouth. The papers he arranged are very difficult. Listening to this tone, it seems to agree. He didn't walk fast, he was tall and straight, handsome and cold, a simple and clean black sweater was put on his body, and the hood was casually placed on the top of his head, lightly pressing the black broken hair in front of his forehead, thin lips sighing slightly. He didn't breathe much, his face was expressionless, and his whole person showed the temperament that strangers should not approach. After 8 o'clock, the boy who wandered for an early morning, intentionally or unintentionally, finally exhausted his last patience. He took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. The call was connected, but no one answered. Shi Luo didn't set an alarm clock this morning, but thanks to Tang Qishan, the melodious ringtone of the mobile phone still rang throughout the bedroom. A small bag bulged slightly on the bed, a lot of snacks were piled around the bed, the whole picture was warm and comfortable. Exclude the ringing phone ringtone. Shi Luo's whole face was wrinkled and huddled under the blanket, and he was kicking things out almost in accordance with the rhythm of the incoming call. More than 10 minutes later, snacks were scattered on the light grey carpet, and Shi Luo sat up from the bed with a pursed mouth and a little quilt in his arms. Drooping down, a head of slightly curly algae hair was tangled messily behind his shoulders, like a little madman picked up from a garbage heap. After a moment, struggling to no avail, she held up the phone in front of her in surrender. Tang Qishan did not know when she passed her friend request, and the lock screen was a message from him. Tang Qishan, come here. Sanity took over the high ground almost instantly. The two cold Chinese characters were sent over there, and the little madman who was having a small meeting with Sleeping God a second ago immediately sat up from the bed. She was subconsciously obedient, and the pillow in her hand was too late to put down. Get out of bed. It's just a night of drowsiness that seems to have softened the bones, and the foot of the foot is not steady, and the whole person falls firmly on the carpet. Shi Luo was stunned for 2 seconds, and suddenly forgot the nervousness just now, and then inexplicably felt wronged. As soon as her eldest lady got angry, she didn't care about her guilty conscience, and she typed and complained over there. I fell off the bed, my ankle was swollen in a big bag, just like the new shoulder bag from GS family. It's all your fault for urging me to make me almost leave this beautiful world. No response from that end. Tang Qishan doesn't use these social software very often. She was forced to add WeChat at the beginning. He rarely sends messages, and his circle of friends is even more clean. In the chat records, her complaints, coquettishness, and broken thoughts took up a lot of space. He would occasionally reply and okay, and the rest of the stage was left to her to play freely. In the last chat interface between the two, Shi Luo swiped 7 or 8 voices in a row every 1 minute. The voice content asks the last big question in the mathematics paper, and then Tang Qishan sent a handwritten problem-solving derivation process. The handwriting is cold and hard, and the auxiliary lines drawn by hand are neat and straight, and the rest no longer have any punctuation marks. He has always been clean and indifferent. After waiting for a while, there was still no movement in the chat interface. Habit does not mean acceptance. She thought about it and added a sentence: this serious injury is serious, and it will not get better without a red envelope. Akimbo.jpg. In a short while, Tang Qishan sent a series of red envelopes with the highest amount, and the problems that can be solved with money are not a problem for him. It is simple and refreshing, and there is no need to worry about it. Plunge into the closet and choose carefully. The scalp shoes. The well-cut white shirt was lightly attached to the upper body, the waist was clearly slender enough to be grasped with one hand, but the small were very bulging. After changing her clothes, she randomly swept away all the textbooks and papers that had been left untouched for 2 days into the bag, and then carried the stack of snacks on the table without falling to the ground, and then a gust of wind run downstairs. He just ran to the semicircular corner of the stairs when he saw a cold boy in a black sweater standing in the hall downstairs. The teenager wears a sweater and hood, hiding half of his cold face. From Shi Luo's perspective, only his tall figure and the delicate Adam's apple around his neck can be seen, but Tang Qishan's temperament, it's too special. He is a deep person who is not familiar with this world and has not yet reconciled. She can recognize him at a glance. He turned his body sideways and nodded slightly, his face was always expressionless. Hearing a lot of movement on the stairs, he looked up subconsciously. The calm and cold eyes glanced lazily at her. The girl who was jumping a second ago stopped for a moment, staring at his deep eyes for a moment, her fingers clenched behind her unconsciously. It was he who came to find someone on his own initiative, but inexplicably made her feel guilty for a while. She just likes sticking to this brother who is 2 years older than her. Even if the young man is cold by nature and has a very ordinary temper, he is not a good person to get along with, but she loyal likes to follow him like a little tail, never leaving him. In my memory, she loyal was only able to speak at that time, so he raised his head, made a small milk voice, and hummed and pulled the corner of the boy's clothes several heads higher than her and said, "I don't have a brother in my family, can I call you a brother?" Tang Qishan seldom has the patience to deal with little girls, but he has a different feeling about her brother. He clearly acquiesced. A big brother called from then to now. The two are family friends. When the family came to her generation, she only gave birth to such a small ancestor. When her father was busy with work, when her mother left early, the elders around her were more affectionate to her. Has been spoiled since she was a child and has been so lawless that almost no one in the family can hold her down, she is an out-and-out little princess. Thanks to Tang Qishan, a halfway brother, who is doing his due diligence. This little princess has a pampered temper. She is a troublemaker outside the world. Every time something happens, she only has a second of consciousness. She sells miserably in front of Tang Qishan, pretends to be pitiful, and goes on. A profound self-analysis and repentance, and made an oath to never make mistakes again, and asked him to help solve the aftermath. Tang Qishan took care of her very strictly, and he restrained many things that her parents didn't teach her, so she was not only dependent on him, but also afraid of him occasionally. It's just that even if he is in private, he can train her with a cold face for a long time, but when he is outside, he still habitually protects her and covers her up with his own hands. A contrived way. However, all this does not allow this little conscience to have any docile attitude towards him. While she naturally relies on him, she can raise her chin to get angry with him. To contradict her, even though his appearance when he was angry and training people did frighten her, it didn't make her remember much. Approaching the senior high school entrance examination, this salted fish, who has never been focusing on her studies, was caught by Tang Qishan. For 2 consecutive weekends, she was forced to go to bed early and get up early, and went to Tang Qishan's house on time to take the test assault supplementary lessons. The game had a great time. The principle of holding is accompanied by a few lines of large characters. 5 kills achievement, Luoluo's little ancestor is awesome. What kind of world game, anyone who knows something will send the trophy home to Shishi. Mother Tang has a young mentality and follows the trend step by step. She is an old fashionista. She is often indispensable for queuing in the circle of friends. What's more, the object of this bragging is that she looks at the girl who has grown up since she was a child. After blowing it, she even puts the mobile phone in front of her son and praises with a smile, "Look at our little family. Lolodo is amazing." Tang Qishan glanced lazily at the phone page, the record flashed by and he couldn't see it clearly, he couldn't see how bad the game was, but he could see it at 4 o'clock in the morning in the upper right corner of the screenshot clearly. If you don't study hard, play games until 4 or 5 o'clock, it's good enough. After that incident, Shi Luo was coldly criticized by him, and he also gave a stack of high school entrance examination sprint test papers as a gift. Villa half a step. She was used to being trained by him since she was a child. In fact, she didn't get angry for a long time. After the grievances, she became nervous again. It really was her fault. The two hadn't seen each other for a few days, and she was panicking. This dog man was full of bad water. He looked good in both character and study, but in fact he was a scumbag. Big move to train her. In addition to being nervous, she began to think about how to review and repent this time. She had become a habit of relying on him, and her heart was empty after a few days. I just didn't expect that before she could change her mind, an indifferent person like Tang Kishan actually came to her house to find someone in person. She had a guilty conscience for several days, but this time it made her somewhat proud. As soon as she is proud, she immediately forgets the psychological activities of thinking and repenting 2 days ago. So the girl who was running fast 1 second, grabbed the handle of the escalator with one hand the next second, bit her lip deliberately, bent down, and started to be shameless. Ankle is swollen, she said weakly, under her voice. She played this kind of miserable trick from childhood to adulthood, but the two were too familiar with each other, and in fact, she had never been able to deceive him once. Tang Kishan stood indifferent. Shi Luo raised his eyes and glared at him. The boy still looked at her indifferently and calmly, making her more and more guilty. After a while, Tang Kishan finally got what she wanted. He walked towards her with a cold face, and helped him down the steps without saying a word, but Aunt Jiao heard the sound and served breakfast sent over. Shi Luo was so focused on acting, he just took a piece of toast at will. Tang Kishan naturally reached out and took her backpack full of textbooks and papers, and turned to go out. Shi Luo hurriedly reached out and tugged at his sleeve, and continued to shamelessly, "You carry me, the author has something to say. Hey, long time no see, I don't know if anyone remembers my little transparent. A childhood sweetheart 12-way secret love story, also known as the story of Tang Gang teaching you to bring your daughter. No, the male protagonist is cold on the outside and possessive on the inside. I will read all the comments, please make more comments, this is the motivation of the author to code, please. 200 red envelopes for comments in this chapter. The pre-received text of the column is asking for a favorite. Thank you. The boss chases me after the breakup in the year when Yearning was born. An umbilical cord blood saved Zhang Shu's life, and Mr. Zhang immediately made a marriage contract for the two. At the age of 18, an accident took away her parents and voice, leaving only her grandfather with a chronic illness. Fiancé. She humbly accompanied him for 3 years with no bottom line, but she was embarrassed at the reception because of her inarticulateness, which became a joke in the upper circle of the city. In the end, it didn't warm his heart. When I was disappointed and left, several humiliating videos leaked out inexplicably, and someone mentioned this woman seems to be the fiancée of the third young master of the Zhang family, which immediately exploded the entire internet. The 18th Dear La Zhang is less hyped. She dares to debut and I dare to be black. The next day, Yearning, who was desperate for money, was forced to debut. Netizens found that the stupid and earthy Yearning seemed to be a different person. The show was good, the variety show was cute, and even the theme song sung by Xiao Meiyan was inexplicably fascinating. The whole network, it's really fragrant. Reporter interview, is Yearning still single? The earlobe is slightly red at the beginning of condensation, A few black fans, oh. The hype of the Lejiang family's 3 young masters has been washed away. At night, Yearning was bullied by Zhang Shu and cried because of her single remarks during the day. At Chunning, Zhang Shu is a big bastard. After half a minute, the initial setting who forgot to switch to the trumpet was topped by the hot search. Black fan, White Lotus is acting as a demon again, a new play is coming, another wave of hype. In the beginning, she wanted to cry without tears and complained to Zhang Shu. Zhang Shu, you still have the strength to post on Weibo? It seems that 3 times is not enough. Yearning. A few hours later, when Yearning fell into a drowsy state, Zhang Shu's Weibo, which has not been published in a century, directly forwarded the big bastard, the anniversary gift is a little late, Ning has a small temper, it is difficult coax, don't disturb the whole network. Thanks for watching, please subscribe r. Shi Luo's delicate brows twitched, just as he was about to have a seizure, he heard his deep voice say, I have sweat on my body. Knowing that he has the habit of running in the morning, she glanced at him, and felt that she didn't care, no matter. Tang Qishan pursed his lips, his face still calm. After a while, he turned his back helplessly. Shi Luo pursed his lips in delight, stretched his arms around his neck obediently, jumped up, the soft body pressed against his broad back. He carried her for a short distance. This morning, he was surprisingly easy to talk. Shi Luo was secretly happy. You know, she was ready to bow her head and admit her mistake, and now she doesn't have to rack her brains to write a review and beg for mercy, but after 2 or 3 days of the Cold War, he actually took the initiative to soften his attitude and come to find someone. This is almost a once-in-a-lifetime. For a while, Shi Luo felt that he was too important, and he was a little floating when he was happy. She tilted her head, rubbed her cheeks on his back naturally, her eyes narrowed slightly, and she looked comfortable. Ning Shuibei was no longer lonely in the morning. Occasionally, neighbors in the community pass by, and Tang Qishan's hand holding her slender legs tightens a little, and frowns deeper. After a while, the young man stopped silently, his voice was deep, with an imperceptible emotion, "Come down first." "Hey!" Before she could react from her comfort, he turned around and directly placed her on the wide flowered stone beside the road to stand firm. Tang Qishan was tall and straight, even if Shi Luo stepped on a stone, he was still a head short. The boy's eyes were clear and his emotions were unpredictable. Shi Luo looked up at him with innocent eyes, and was at a loss for a moment. Is it possible to deceive her from the house and settle accounts later in the fall? This is too cruel. The little girl who felt that she had recognized the reality pursed her lips, put her hands behind her back, clasped them together nervously, lowered her head, let her hair fall, and gave up on herself. After a few seconds, he was still indifferent. Shi Luo couldn't help raising his eyes to peek, and saw that he touched the zipper of his sweater with one hand. She subconsciously raised her eyes and looked at the neckline. The young man's fingers were slender, with well-defined joints, and the slightly raised cyan meridians were faintly visible under the cold white skin. How to say something? Shi Luo's red ears reddened, and he looked away uncomfortably. Tang Qishan opened the sweater zipper cleanly. Even if the wind blows again, the fair legs cannot be seen. During this period, Tang Qishan didn't mean to ask this stinky girl at all, and his actions were meticulous and domineering. Shi Luo glanced at this stupid match, and couldn't help but wonder what aesthetics this dog man had. Before she raised her head, she heard a hoarse male voice floating above her head, "Don't wear such a short dress in the future." 9102 years old brother, what kind of old-fashioned thinking are you? He used to control her like this. Only today, Shi Luo inexplicably felt a strange feeling in his heart. He always felt that something was not right. His white earlobes were red, and he replied uncomfortably and obediently, "Got it." This eldest brother obviously did not have the consciousness to analyze the girl's mind. He lowered his eyes slightly, nodded casually, then turned his back to her, "Come up." This is his unique smell. It is said that this smell is commonly known as coffin plate incense. Coupled with the cold face and personality of his coffin plate, Shi Luo thinks this statement is quite scientifically based. The two were speechless. It was so quiet that you could almost hear the faint breathing of both parties. The boy under her body has a steady pace, strong and broad shoulders, and seems to have a sense of security. Shi Luo concentrated for a moment, and couldn't help but think of Fan Yu's ridicule. She wrapped her hands around Tang Qishan's neck subconsciously, and then she wondered if she could dismantle Tang Qishan's bones or not, but with his strong body, a punch could probably 800 of her were killed. Is this considered a kind of domestic violence? Shi Luo was in a trance, while randomly stuffing the toast slices he brought out into his mouth. For the first time, there were some mindless sighs in my mind. I felt that the distance between the two villas was closer. There are too many thoughts, and the mind is not on eating, and the toast residue falls off Tang Qishan. The young man turned his head coldly, met her bulging face, and said solemnly, "Luo Luo." Only then did she regain her senses, her cheeks were half red, and she quickly apologized, "Ah, I didn't pay attention, do you eat?" Tang Kishan. Fairies have eaten, one bite can prolong life. Tang Kishan's face was written with the expression, "If you say more, I will leave you on the side of the road on the spot." Recalling the messy thoughts I had just now, I suddenly felt that my head was flooded. Where did domestic violence come from? Who asked him to marry her? A dog man with such a temper can find a girlfriend. There is a ghost. Not to mention such a noble woman. Thinking about it, she still feels overwhelmed. At this time, the girl who was still on her back and refused to come down couldn't help but start to, "Oh, Brother Kishan, when you have a girlfriend in the future, you must notify me. I will definitely be the first. It's time to buy 3 sticks of incense and light it up, and I will mourn for her in advance." "No, 3 sticks a day." Tang Kishan heard the sound, his steps stagnated for a moment, and then continued to walk forward as if nothing had happened. His tone was still cold, as if the topic had nothing to do with him. "Then I will thank you for her first." Shi Luo was about to die of anger. She chatted all the way, and when she came to the door of Tang's house, she saw Tang's mother in the garden, and then she started arguing with embarrassment to get down and go by herself. Tang Chi frowned deeply, obeyed her wishes, put the person down from her body, and then dismantled the platform lightly. "Don't you mean your feet hurt?" Shi Luo pouted, took off the waist sweater and threw it back into his arms. She took care of the slightly wrinkled skirt. During this period, the boy beside her didn't say a word until she raised her head again, and she suddenly met him who was looking at her. Shi Luo shrank back, "Scare someone." Tang Kishan has been cold and ruthless for a day or two. Shi Luo was dazzled by his initiative to bow his head early in the morning, and tossed him for a while. In the past few days, the eldest lady didn't write a single paper. In a pinch like this, an apology is obviously useless. Before she could speak, Tang Kishan took the red pen she put on the table, and circled a few paragraphs of the original sentence with many mistakes. Side back. Shi Luo's little face instantly burst into tears, and whispered, "My feet hurt." The implication is that it is already so miserable, so don't punish it. However, Tang Kishan didn't seem to have any intention to pity Xiangziyu. He put down the graded papers, and then tapped the pen on the table with his finger. "Not eating her way, you use your feet copy, or say the head grows on the feet, et. Listen, is this what people say?" The lawless little ancestor picked up the pen and started copying. Seeing that she was no longer fooling around, Tang Kishan did not mock her again. He stood at the table and stared for a while, then recalled what she had just said, and looked down slightly. The upright young man automatically skipped the long white and slender legs, and finally his eyes stopped on her delicate ankles for a moment, then turned to leave the bedroom and walked downstairs. "When I came back, I had a tray of snacks and 2 glasses of milk. When I got closer, I realized that the girl who had her back to the door and buried herself in copying did not treat herself badly at all. Hold a pen in one hand and eat snacks brought from home in the other." Tang Chi pursed her lips slightly, and glanced lazily at her bulging school bag, which was full of snacks, and he was about to laugh angrily. "Are you here for a picnic?" Shi Luo hummed twice, not intending to respond directly. Afraid that she would feel thirsty after eating, he put the milk on the table and pushed it in front of her. Shi Luo took it and took a sip, and naturally put it back into his hand and complained, "It's not sweet, I like to drink sweet milk." "Drinking sweets all the time is not good for your health." Of course he knew about her stinky problem. The young man glanced at her, then at the milk he had drank in his hand, shook his head helplessly, the corners of his lips seemed to tick up slightly, and habitually drank the rest after finishing. He exchanged another cup of sweet milk for her, took his own competition question, and sat lazily directly opposite her. As soon as Tang Kishan sat down opposite her, Shi Luo became restless. She raised her head a little and could see that pretty face. Even if I saw it from a young age, it seems that no matter how I look at it, I still don't know what to do. Where the nib of the pen stayed, there was a black cloud on the workbook. She didn't recover until Tang Kishan's index finger lightly tapped the table. 10 times isn't enough. The author has something to say. After many years, Tang Kishan bought a small skirt for Shi Luo seriously. Shi Luo straightened his face. A great man once said that such a short skirt is not allowed again. Tang Kishan, just wear it in front of me, that's fine. There is one more update at 6 p.m. The little ones who are watching. Lots of comments. There are also 100 red envelopes in this chapter. Thanks to, it was Lin Xing who threw a rocket launcher. 10 times isn't enough. Shi Luo pouted and muttered unconvincingly, try copying it 10 times. 15 times. This is still worth it. She has to copy it 10 times. For the sake of her own delicate hands, she must obey this softness. Qi Shen, I was wrong, a big mistake. If you have to ask what is wrong, the mistake is not to indulge in male sex. Of course, she didn't dare to tell the truth, but fortunately Tang Kishan was not interested in asking. He looked up at her lazily, the girl lowered her head, and the whole inner drama was very full. This appearance was much more well-behaved than her usual fangs and claws, and it was extremely deceptive. It's just that the object is Tang Kishan, it is impossible to deceive him, that is, when he is in a good mood, he is willing to give her a step down. Fortunately, Tang Kishan seems to be in a good mood today, and her soft-spoken appearance is really cute. The teenager glanced down at her workbook, which has been copied 3 times. The handwriting Kingziu, there is nothing wrong, but his attitude is quite correct. After copying this time, I made up for the papers arranged last week. He said lightly. This is a huge concession, and the little stars in Shi Luo's eyes are almost jumping out one by one. She smiled and raised her eyes and winked at him, and then quickly copied the large English paragraph at hand, and offered the workbook with both hands for him to review, and at the end she graciously took a photo flattering, "Love you." Hearing the sound, Tang Kishan's hand that took her book stopped for a moment, then lowered his head and tickled it with a red pen as if he hadn't heard it. After a long time, Luo almost forgot what nonsense he had said before, only to hear the young man across from him calmly say, "Don't talk nonsense anymore." Shi Luo was a little clever, but was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. He always wanted what he wanted. All the relatives, friends, and sisters around him held her unconditionally, so every challenge in this life was a challenge. No, after a long time, the temperament of salted fish has also been raised. However, if you don't focus on studying, you still have little patience. This math paper was written by Tang Kishan himself. The difficulty is bigger than the mock papers she usually writes in school, and mathematics is her weakness. She is more flexible in a few places, and she pauses for a long time. I wrote several sheets of scratch paper, the girl frowned, and even put down the snacks she had just eaten, and she did the calculation several times, but she couldn't calculate the result. After a few tossing, she was finally defeated. She raised her eyes, and the beautiful little fox turned her eyes, and her eyes stayed on the teenager who was brushing the competition questions on the opposite side. With a pitiful gesture, he pushed the paper in front of him. "I can't think of it." Looking at the process she had done countless times on the scratch paper, she used a red pen to write a formula she forgot. The girl's originally dejected eyes suddenly lit up, suddenly brightened. She is not as calm as he is, and when she thinks of a method, she takes the paper back and swirls to write down the next problem-solving process, and it is rare to have no homework on her face. The impatience at the time added a little joy. Tang Chi raised his eyebrows deeply, and stared at her for a long time with the corners of his lips slightly hooked, and his mood seemed to be much better. He bowed his head again. On the page was a provincial competition question that he had just finished. At this moment, there were several simpler algorithms in his mind. Because he solved the question just now, Shi Luo seemed to have found the trick to understand this set of papers, and the later big questions were much easier to write. If she can't write it, she learns Tang Qishan's way to draw outlines on the question I, and then memorizes the formula he had checked before. It didn't take a while for her to spend half a day. The paper, which was written after a long time, was written to the end in one fell swoop. Sometimes the sense of achievement is so inexplicable. After she finished writing the paper, she proudly raised it to the other side, and regardless of whether it would interrupt his thoughts on the question, she clamored for him to check it quickly. Tang Qishan didn't have any objections. He glanced at her expression full of praise, and there was a little cuteness in the expansion. Fortunately, he was calm, but he couldn't hold back his smile. But he just slightly corrected a few simple questions, and his brows were slightly wrinkled again. When the coffin face reappeared, Shi Luo was smugly eating snacks and didn't pay attention. She felt that she had just written the paper at the level of a student, and she was arrogant for a while, and began to imagine the high school entrance examination soon. I feel stable before I take the test, Brother Qishan. When the school starts in September, I will go to the third middle and high school with you. After school, you can take me. By the way, I always ask Uncle Lu to drive it, and it's not good for other students to see the impact, so you say so. She has coveted the back seat of Tang Qishan's bicycle for a long time. Although the middle and high schools of No. 3 Middle School are not in the same campus, Tang Qishan's reputation has long been spread among countless elementary school girls. It is said that there is a student council president in No. 3 Middle School who has achieved outstanding results and looks quite outstanding. He is only 1.87 meters tall in the first year of high school. If he stops casually in the crowd, it is the focus of his eyes. The temper is still cold, walking in the ice cave. Scholar. Abstinence president. These words put together, it is a girl's dream object. Shi Luo thinks that the back seat of the car is quite a face. She is bound to get it. She must go to the back door early to prevent other little fairies from getting in first. She also knew something about Tang Qishan. Every time she serves softly and admits counsel, it is the best time for him to speak. For the competition in the back seat of the car, she had to forcibly praise him. Thinking of the gossip in the school, she began to close her eyes and praised, I also heard that the student council president of No. 3 Middle School very handsome, good at studying and ruthless. A lot of female classmates in our school said that in order to be in the same school with him, they have to be admitted to the third middle school. She pretended not to know who the student council president was at the moment, and planned to start from the side and perform a reasonable and effective rainbow fart session in the attitude of passers-by and fans. As soon as she finished speaking, she waited for Tang Qishan to say yes, and then drove her home to and from school. How can you imagine that these little fang girls who can tell stories are not reliable at all? They only know that they can add all the awesome elements to one person, even who is the student council president of the third middle school. Didn't figure it out. If you consider the position of the student council president of No. 3 Middle School, the rumored words are indeed used to describe Tang Qishan. The position of student council president was originally suitable for him, but Tang Qishan didn't like to be in contact with outsiders, and he didn't like to be in the limelight. Not long ago, this name fell on a boy who was 1 year older than him. In other words, Shi Luo's strong touts, regrettably, to the wrong person. It's not a mistake, the object of the blow is another male compatriot. Tang Qishan's face was obviously even more ugly. He was merciless, and he struck down several forks in a row. Shi Luo glanced down and almost didn't hold back tears. She has mastered all the problems very well, but she was careless in the simple basic questions in front of her, and she calculated several mistakes. She carefully raised her head to peek at him. Her expression was as cold as a coffin board. Tang Qishan is very scary when he gets angry. He doesn't get angry, he doesn't speak loudly, he just has such an expressionless face, doesn't say anything, doesn't take the initiative to pay attention to you, occasionally raises his eyes when I glanced at you lightly. I felt so cold and panicked that I could not wait to kneel down and hug my thighs and cry and call my father. Shi Luo pouted, his little heart thumping. After waiting for a while, he still hasn't opened his mouth. Shi Luo felt that she had to take advantage of this gap to give herself a chance to rescue herself. She slowly stretched out her hand, pinched Tang Qishan's sleeves and tugged, with a dog-legged smile on her face. Her posture was extremely low, completely lost the attitude of the little ancestors on weekdays. It is reasonable to say that in this case, the usual Tang Qishan will more or less hold back his temper. Only today, when he thought of the girl just now, his eyes lit up, and he vowed to say that for the handsome and ruthless student council president to be admitted to the third middle school. His eyes dimmed, his thin lips pursed slightly. She quietly retracted her arms and pulled the sleeves back from her fingers. Now Shi Luo quits. It's just a careless mistake, and it's not a real exam. She has bowed her head first, and he is still serious. So before he could speak again, she threw the pen in her hand on his table, hummed angrily, and turned a few steps to the big bed beside the partition drill. From the black of the sheets to the faint sandalwood fragrance, the whole big bed is filled with Tang Qishan's cool breath. This is his bedroom, and the bed is naturally his usual bed. Shi Luo is a frequent visitor to the Tang family villa. Since her mother passed away, she likes to run here all day. Tang Qishan is quite used to her in this matter. Even if she hides the cleanliness brought out of her mother's womb, she never thinks there is anything wrong with her drilling into her bed. At this moment, Luo was accustomed to hiding under the covers and getting angry. Tang Qishan stared at the girl huddled on his bed, and his mood was inexplicably better. I know that she is very playful and tired of studying, so I don't plan to force it. He reached out and pressed the remote control beside the table, and the whole arch-shaped floor-to-ceiling glass window behind him instantly changed color. The room was dark. He got up and walked to the bed. Shi Luo didn't dare to move, but heard a deep voice from outside the bed saying, "Sleep when you're tired." Then the sound of footsteps as he left, and the door closed. Shi Luo was so anxious last night because Tang Qishan ignored her for a few days. Feeling a little sleepy, the girl hiding under the quilt simply listened to him obediently, hugged the black quilt full of sandalwood incense, closed her eyes, and fell asleep after a while. During the period, Tang Qishan went out the door and came back with a bag of medicine in his hand. A few steps upstairs and into the room was silent. Shi Luo was lying on the bed in a relaxed and defenseless posture. His arrogant arrogance. When she woke up again, there seemed to be something cold on her ankle. She went down according to the feeling, and lifted the quilt, only to find that a plaster was put on her head. Although most of the time in the morning, she was just exaggerating and pretentious, but after taking a deep look at it, Tang Qi felt that it was still a little red, and she simply made a fuss and carefully applied the medicine for her. In the darkness, Shi Luo couldn't hide the little happiness in his heart, and couldn't help but tick the corners of his lips. Lying on a small sofa not far away, Tang Qishan closed his eyes and rested his mind. When he heard a movement, he sat up, his voice slightly hoarse, with a bit of laziness, "Awake." Shi Luo felt that she was not something at the moment. The scene was very embarrassing. She was trying to find a topic to ease the atmosphere, but listening to her deep brother on the other side seemed to be a little more serious. He asked her a question. For the student council president to be admitted to the third high school. Shi Luo didn't know why he suddenly mentioned this. He hesitated for a while, but replied in a low voice, Tang Qishan snorted softly, and after a while, he seemed to say to himself, "Okay. The author has something to say." Tang Qishan, student president, it's a little mean. A new officer took office as the student council president? What are you doing? I managed to grab this title. Don't do anything. Thanks to minions. K threw a grenade while through a mine. Shi Luo slept at his house last night. After reconciling with Tang Qishan, her sleep quality improved steadily. She only read 2 lines of the domineering president novel before going to bed, and then she closed her eyes and fell asleep. The next day was Monday, and Shiluo got up early. When I got to the classroom, the classmates were almost there. She always likes to be late, and the best case is to step on the spot. Seeing her entering the door at this moment, the class representative began to clamor to accept the homework. Hey, Shiluo is here, I think the teacher almost got it, don't copy it, hurry up and hand it in. In any case, it is the sprint stage of the senior high school entrance examination. At this time, the learning atmosphere is actually quite strong. These words of the class representative are mainly for Fan Yujixiao or this kind of students who have minds at home and can get into the key points by donating a building. Fan Yuj is copying it. He copied the homework and had already copied the experience, how much time it took to copy the answer, he calculated every second is not bad. At the moment there is still half of the paper, he feels that something is not right, he glanced at the phone, yo, it's not time for class, it's still more than 20 minutes, brother, don't worry, eat 2 buns and then receive. While he was talking, Shiluo was already sitting in front of him. You don't need to use your brain to copy homework, Fan Yuj pressed her while copying, why did you come so early today? I'm afraid you won't be able to finish the homework? It's okay, there are not many papers this week, big questions. There are only a few lines in the process, and it's fast to copy. Come on, I have finished copying this one. Su Yang asked for it. The accuracy rate is 100%. You deliberately chose the wrong to when copying. Don't follow without thinking like a fool, he moved up. Shiluo ignored him, took a bottle of yogurt from his school bag and drank it for a couple of sips before he took out the paper he had written long ago and threw it in front of him to show off. I wrote it myself, it is 100% accurate, can I copy it? Fan Yuj raised his eyebrows, and Shiluo was a little proud. Oh, don't show such adoring eyes, this paper is quite simple, we good students can write it in minutes, but if you have to praise me, I can also reluctantly accept it, that's it. Fan Yuj couldn't help laughing, I brag, when I finish copying, I will make a PPT to brag about you, and cast it on the big screen at the school gate to ensure that all the snack bar owners on the 2 streets will I know you have learned to write questions. When Luo heard it, of course he stepped on him several times. Fan Yuj and Xiao these are the second-generation ancestors of the king who grew up in Ningxuivan. He was used to being bullied by Shiluo, and his feet were not painful at all. There are multiple choice questions in front of the paper. He copied it quickly, and he had a good idea. The answer was C, and he deliberately wrote A B, then crossed it out with a different color pen, and wrote the correct answer next to it. The entire business process is quite proficient, and it seems that the learning attitude is unmatched on the volume. After he copied the choices, he picked up and copied the big questions of the paper that Shiluo threw over to save face. While copying it, she exaggerated, yes, this problem-solving process is simpler than Su Yang's, and it is much faster to copy. Shiluo bit the straw, a little swollen. Or's arm, Brother Shen's methods are really good. You can see that the little princess was trained, taught, obedient, and even knows how to write papers. Shiluo felt his ears turn red when he heard this, and immediately turned around and pretended to be annoyed, glared at him with an unnatural expression on his face. Fan Yuj, you stop talking nonsense. Fan Yuj laughed cheaply, Tisk, who is talking nonsense, little princess, your thinking is not very good, the campus is not illegal, and it has started again? What's the matter, come on, let's hear it. Fan Yuj obviously deliberately made fun of her. However, the targets of ridicule were she and Tang Qishan, and Shiluo didn't know what was going on with him, and he clearly scolded him angrily, but there was a strange kind of joy in his heart. She forced herself not to raise the corner of her mouth, picked up the paper and smashed it on his head, and then turned around in a hurry, as if she was running away. Her cheeks were inexplicably red. Ye Sungsun was Shiluo Junior High School's roommate for 3 years, from Ganji, and the two had a strong relationship. At this moment, Luo saw that the seat beside her was empty, and she remembered last week that she said she would take a leave of absence to go back to Ganshi. She came early today and didn't need to copy homework. She had nothing to do. She took out her mobile phone to chat with her desk mate. I just sent an emoji, and it was almost a second. Yes, Sungsuan, good morning, my eldest lady, on a new day, have you reconciled with your deep brother? Shi Luo, indeed, who do you think is willing to fight with me for more than 3 days? The two of them had nothing to say. Of course Ye Sungsuan did not forget that this little princess was discussing with her about how to admit her mistake a few days ago, so another message came over there soon. Bite broken fingers wrote 8,000 words in blood to review and repent. Shi Luo's face swelled, and his typing fingers became proud and powerful. It's him, personally, beg me, to his house. Ye Sungsuan can believe it, she is full of exaggeration and perfunctory. Oh, it's amazing. Shi Luo could see the sarcasm from her exaggerated wavy lines. She simply held down the screen and sent a long series of voices. The ins and outs of the day were detailed in the voice, adding fuel and vinegar to everything. The whole person is dazzling and shining. Ye Sungsuan was visiting her newborn niece in the Ganshi hospital at the moment. She didn't have any earphones, so she couldn't hear the voice. But you can't let Shi Luo wait too long. This girl is impatient and irritated, she can chat all day. So she had to use quite social communication routines, and replied, wow, he is too that. Although Shi Luo didn't know which one she was talking about, he nodded involuntarily and replied to her, yes, but that one. I felt like an idiot after I finished it, right? As expected, before she could finish listening, the phone vibrated non-stop. Shi Luo? Do you think I haven't swiped Weibo? Shi Luo, did you not listen to my voice? Shi Luo, very good, Yesuan, you are dead. Ye Sungsuan laughed until her shoulders were shaking, but she did not forget to find some vitality for herself. I think I can explain it. Shi Luo, of course, did not intend to listen to it. I will hand over the stack of fan fictions you wrote in class to the class teacher and let her appreciate it. The excellent writer Ye, the class teacher Wang Quifeng, and the beautiful love story of Lu Daqiang, the physics teacher in the next class. A basin of cold water quenched Shi Luo's anger. She felt that it was necessary to change the subject at this moment. Ye Sungsuan finished listening to Shi Luo's voice. If you change to a listener who is a little less familiar with her, you can directly make up the picture of the two getting a certificate and having a child. Ye Sungsuan naturally thought she was farting, but in any case, she had to express her reflection on the little princess's voice for more than a minute. I'm done. He is so kind to you. When the words hit Shi Luo's eyes, she suddenly remembered Fan Yu's joke just now, and the profile of her face buried in her arms became hot again for no reason, and then she pouted and began to complain, okay shit. He also thinks my skirt is too short. Duplicity, I understand. Ye Sungsuan knew her best, and knew that it was time to follow Her Royal Highness's wishes and enter the routine of complaining. She held the phone with a nervous ant smile, and then began to cooperate with Shi Luo's performance. Ye Sungsuan, your deep brother is really strict with you. If it were me, that would be absolutely unbearable. Luo has such a good temper. The sweetest little fairy in the world. Shi Luo was coaxed to the point of being aggrieved, and was filled with righteous indignation. No way, dog man. The cry of the fairy.jpg. Ye Sungsuan almost burst into laughter. Hug. What short skirt, can it be too short to be seen? Send it to me Kong Kong. Tang Kishan is too lacking in aesthetics. Sisters help you scold him together. She only dared to talk in private chats. When she really wanted to see Tang Kishan come to Shi Luo, she slipped faster than anyone else. However, Shi Luo couldn't see Ye Sungsuan's expression. Just by reading the words, she felt that her best friend was indeed her best friend. In the end is on her side. Her uniform dress was ordered directly from Japan, and there was no photo saved in her mobile phone, so she simply opened the official website to search for a while, and clicked the sharing link to WeChat. But who knows, when sharing, the order update of WeChat chat list is slightly delayed. The top chat box is not Yesuan, who just talked, but Tang Kishan, who sent her the answer to the math problem last night. When the skirt link was shared in the past, she hadn't found it yet. Inertia clicked stay on WeChat, and then continued typing and complaining. When she talked to her little sister about Tang Kishan in private, she was often not obedient when she was under his nose, and usually just named him directly. On the other hand, Tang Kishan was doing the physics competition in the early Chinese self-study. The quiet phone beside the scratch paper vibrated and the screen lit up. A chain of links with several messages. Luo, on this one, Tang Kishan said to me fiercely at that time, you are not allowed to wear such a short skirt in the future. Lolo, what can I say? Of course I said, I see. Tang Kishan's pen tip paused for a moment, his finger swiped on the screen, and turned up a few lines, confirming that she sent it correctly. He stared at the 3 words Tang Kishan for a long time, and suddenly groaned, as if she felt that it was not bad that she didn't call her brother. Yesungsun didn't reply for a long time. Shi Luo felt a little strange, and was about to complain again, but suddenly saw the words Qi Shen brother in the remarks column on the top. The air is suddenly quiet. This little heart beats to the throat. She hurriedly prayed that Tang Kishan was studying hard at the moment and didn't see it. She wanted to withdraw the message after one operation, but suffocating, her nervous fingers flicked, and it was perfect to delete. The next second, the phone vibrated. Tang Kishan? The client Shi Luo felt regret at this moment, quite regretful. She hurriedly typed the classic in the dialog box, it's definitely not what you think. I just finished typing, but I haven't sent it yet, and I feel that this sentence is too stupid, so I quickly deleted it. Tang Kishan was rarely distracted while writing questions, staring at the screen of her mobile phone, watching her switching back and forth between the 2 states of the other party is typing. And the note Lolo. The slightly frowning brows stretched slightly. Lu Chengxiao, who sat beside him and wrote questions together, was one of the few brothers of Tang Kishan. Flirtatious, joking with great interest, the little daughter-in-law at home is causing trouble again. Tang Kishan glanced at him lightly, non-committal. After a long time, the other party seems to have come up with a plan. Messages poured in one after another. Luo, I felt that my dear brother Kishan was right. Luo, tell me, what is the most important thing for girls of our age? Are you dressed up? No, it's learning. Only with unlimited learning can we have a better future. Luo, listening to your words is better than reading 10 years of books. I think the greatest luck in my life is to meet such a smart, handsome, and long-term visionary life mentor as Brother Qi Shen. Without him, I didn't realize how wrong I was. Luo, so Sungsuan, stop wearing the short skirt you just sent me. Look, does yours look similar to mine? Brother Kishan said that it is not allowed to wear it, so we have to be obedient. Luo, reflect on yourself. She finished the scene and waited patiently for a while. Dear? The intention of flattery should not be too obvious. Tang Ki deep lips were slightly hooked, waiting for her next performance. It really lived up to his expectations. A few minutes later, the message came in again. Luo, oops, Brother Kishan, I'm sorry, the message was sent to the wrong person just now, and it was sent to my desk mate Sungsuan. Tang Kishan held the phone, raised his eyebrows, and cooperated with her with great interest. It's okay. Shi Luo is still persevering, since you have seen it all, I can't keep it a secret for her. She just insisted on wearing a short skirt, so she just wore the one I wore last time. As short as this, can I watch her go astray? Of course not, she must be given some serious ideological education. This girl is quite proficient in selling girlfriends and is full of skill points. Luo, you don't learn well at a young age, next time if she comes to my house, you can talk about her too, I'm afraid she won't listen to me. She did not forget to set up his stalwart image. Tang Kishan didn't know what little tricks she was doing, but she was too lazy to expose her. Just seeing the last sentence, the boy was silent for a moment, and suddenly sent a message over. I have no interest in her, and she is not under my control. The moment she received the message, Shi Luo's head went blank. My heart beats fast. The author has something to say. It's time for the protagonist to select comments to reply. You can't see the comments, I'll stream it to you. Reader, I can see that my brother likes Lolo and pampers Lolo so that he can chase his wife and crematorium. Tang Kishan, as expected of me. Reader, 10 times is not enough. Lolo, still human? Later, Tang Kishan, who had not been a man for many years, had another negotiation with Shi Luo. Tang Kishan, 5 times. Lolo, up to 3 times. Tang Kishan, 6 times. Lolo, 4 times. No more. Tang Kishan, 7 times. Lolo, 5 times, 5 times. Originally, she was still happily waiting for Shi Luo to send out the picture, but she never thought of sending a message in the blink of an eye, and it would be unsuccessful. When her friend request with full of desire for survival was finally approved by Shi Luo, the first sentence was, Hello, Shi Luo? Yes Sungsuan, are you a kidnapper? Terror.jpg Shi Luo? Yes Sungsuan, it must be done during self-study in the morning, right? I knew it. When our little princess suddenly lost news, I knew that it must have been kidnapped by you. Please treat her well, don't hit her, if you hit her, you must be gentle, don't hit her face is precious, and the mask you put on is 1,000 pieces of good stuff. I know you to remove me from the blacklist, it must be because I have the best relationship with her, who asks me for a ransom, I will give it. I give everything. If I hadn't been at the same table with her for 3 years, knowing what kind of virtue this great writer who writes dog-blooded novels in class all day long, Shi Luo was almost moved to tears by her. Before she had time to speak, Yesun actually started to send ransom money here, red envelopes one after another. Shi Luo opened them one by one. 50 cents a dollar, the maximum amount is $1.68, which is not enough for her to buy 2 packs of spicy sticks. At this moment, she was suddenly not in a hurry to find what she was doing, and quickly entered the roll with her mobile phone. She is worth so much money? I can't, seeing her look like a fairy descended from the earth, I think it's priceless. Shi Luo was the only one who could brag about himself like this without skin and face. Ye Sungsun laughed for a long time, and then replied to her, I can also take out this amount, not to hide you said that my relationship with her is quite ordinary. If it exceeds 5 yuan and 5, you should tear up the ticket. Ye Sungsun laughed so hard that she almost spilled milk on her newly bought keyboard. In order to prevent herself from entering the small dark room again, she had to quickly appease this little fairy with fried hair. Baby. I stole an electric car to redeem you. Shi Luo pouted, you didn't say that just now, besides, an electric car can redeem me? It is only 0.1 seconds before you enter the small dark room again. Ye Sungsun seemed to have a premonition of her own crisis, and in desperation, she had to move out the only name that could hold her down, otherwise, I will go to the Tang family overnight. You know the Tang family bar? It's the wealthy Tang family in Hengshi City. The goods in your hands are the most distressed and most precious child brides-in-law of his son Tang Kishan. As long as you talk to him, he will be willing to pay as much as you want. Without blinking. I have to say, Ye Sungsun's trick is really effective. Shi Luo was still full of fighting power and wanted to fight her for another hour, but these 2 sentences, the most distressed and the most precious, the words he is willing, hit her in front of her eyes, and it seemed that she had succeeded in pleasing her. Not only did she not want to quarrel, but she was also a little happy for no reason. She threw her phone aside at will, grabbed the quilt under her to cover her face, and rolled around on the bed for a few times, but she couldn't figure out what she was doing. After a few minutes, Shi Luo finally remembered the business. Although Tang Qishan didn't expose the episode in the morning, she knew when she woke up that her little trick was not enough in front of him. This realization made her even embarrassed to go to Tang's house for dinner. Ye Sungsun's proposal was to send a breakfast made by herself. Shi Luo immediately questioned, "But I can't, I've never done this, I've never even seen an eggshell, and in the novels I read, it's usually only given by boyfriends and girlfriends. For breakfast, I don't have that kind of relationship with him." Say, isn't this kind of relationship between the two? However, Shi Luo really thought that way. She used to rely on Tang Qishan since she was a child, but she never really thought about it too much. In the end, at the strong suggestion of Ye Sungsun, I still plan to send a breakfast back, but since the eldest lady who does not touch the spring water has no survival skills, I made breakfast and changed it to a simple one. Deliver juice. The juicer will always be used, right? If not, I will let your Aunt Jiao teach you. Wash the fruit and throw it in, and turn it on. Shi Luo ran to the kitchen, put on an apron, and practiced juicing all night. The little slacker who always likes to sleep in late, got up early the next day in order to get flattery early. I asked for fresh fruit from Aunt Jiao, squeezed a cup full of banana milk, then put on my school bag and ran to Tang Qishan's house. When she arrived at the gate of the Tang family villa, there were already servants in the courtyard watering the flowers and pruning the branches. At this point, Tang Qishan used to run in the morning on the green road in the community, and Shi Luo went to the swing frame to sit down and wait for someone. She didn't sleep much last night and woke up too early in the morning. She was not very energetic at this moment. When Tang Qishan came back, he saw the picture of this little girl comfortably nestled in the swing frame. The beautiful little fox's eyes were gently closed, and she was holding a cup of yellow and clear things in her hand. Tang Qi raised his eyebrows deeply, and when he walked over, he subconsciously eased his footsteps, and he didn't seem to be reluctant to wake people up. When she woke up again, he had already carried her to the back seat of the Bentley. If it weren't for Tang Qishan, who was wearing a meticulous school uniform next to him, Shi Luo really thought that the joke with Yesun last night had come true, and the kidnappers had finally attacked her. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but ask, "Brother Qishan, if I was kidnapped, would you pay a lot of money to redeem me?" The girl was full of anticipation and stared at him with piercing eyes. Tang Qishan tilted his head and glanced at her, and then slightly hooked the corner of his lips from an angle she couldn't see. "No." Shi Luo didn't remember at all that he was here to flatter him. "Get off, I'll get off immediately." "Get off, there are no buses on this road, and even taxis are reluctant to come here. It is still 8 kilometers away from your school." Shi Luo felt that at this moment he had to listen to the words of his ancestors, bear the humiliation and bear the burden, and never mention getting out of the car even if he died. Tang Qishan no longer had a straight face, and chuckled lightly, "With your tossing ability, I think they will regret it in minutes after they bind you, and would rather send you from the capital. Return. Raising me is harder than going to jail." She followed his words and continued. "Isn't it?" Tang Qishan seemed to be in a good mood, and he said more than usual, "If you don't eat this, don't eat that. If you can't write the paper, you will lose your temper. It is difficult to raise. The driver in front is already an old man of the Tang family, but even after staying in the Tang family for so many years, I still have to sigh at the power of Miss Shi Luo. It seems that only in front of this little princess will she be willing to say 2 more words. Why did you come here early in the morning?" "Oh." Then she remembered that she still had a cup to give him, but the two of them had just quarreled, and now she was a little reluctant to give it. "I will give it to you. I squeezed it myself, I practiced for a long time last night." The expression on her face was uncontrollable smug, and it seemed that she wanted to be praised. Tang Qishan couldn't help laughing. "What did you squeeze?" "Banana milk." He suddenly looked down at Shi Luo's hand, and said, "Come on, stretch out your hand and I'll count." Count what? I count to see if my fingers are still there, and I can use a juicer. It's amazing. On the other side, the student union office of Hengshi No. 3 Middle School and High School was a little lively. New Student Council President Wen Hao officially took office today. The so-called three fires when a new official takes office, this new president interprets this sentence vividly. Wen Hao coveted this position from the first year of high school, and it was not until the end of the second year of high school that he succeeded because of various reasons. On the face of it, I criticized many of my classmates who I used to work with. Who knows, just in time for the new president to train people. Wen Hao is also one of the second generation of the rich. But in the end, he can't compare with Fan Yuezh, who are rich and wealthy and do not worry about the future. His parents still hope that their son will become a dragon, so he can't wait to seize any opportunity to express himself. Fortunately, his parents raised eyebrows in front of you. This kind of person has been holding back for a long time, and finally has a bit of power and prestige. When criticizing people, they are fierce like gangsters fighting, scaring the small officials to dare not look up. Ji Gai is the least timid one in this class of officers. His family's conditions are not very good. Reprimand. Occasionally, Ji Kai couldn't help but reminded in a low voice, the director ordered this, listen to me if I say it or not. Now I'm the student council president. Even if Tang Qishan came to me, he had to call me the council president honestly. Tang Qishan is a thorn in his heart, even if he is reluctant to admit that this position was given up by him, the fact cannot be changed, so he likes to use his name when he scolded people. The ability is not big, but the authority is not small. The director was about to explode. Fang Cai Wen Hao's bunch of words, he listened to every word, and he used his power to bully others into dirty. He didn't know what he was blind. Where did he find such a student to replace him at this location? Tang Qishan was silent in the back. Ji Gai was scolded and wronged, and hid in the corner of the bookshelf to wipe his tears. Tang Qishan and Ji Gai were in the same class, and probably knew the ins and outs. The young man pursed his lips and walked quietly to his side. Wash your face, man. Then he used his tall stature to block all the gazes that explored him. Brother Xie Shen. The director is already chasing Wen Hao, and finally Tang Qishan nodded and was willing to take on the title. He said that he would replace Wen Hao. This time, Wen Hao was anxious. Director, why do you have to give him the position? My academic performance is not bad, and I am 1 year higher than him. Tang Qishan didn't have the heart to listen to him. The banana milk brought out of the classroom said lightly, then let's talk based on grades. Director. I think I can just replace his. Tang Qi pursed his lips slightly, and showed no emotion on his face. You can test whatever you want. Okay. Wen Hao's palms were all sweaty, since Tang Qishan pushed the right to choose to him. Don't blame him for being rude, then the quality of the product that just came out a few days ago checking the paper will save the director the trouble of producing another paper. He said that he did not forget to flatter the director, and all the expressions on his face said that he was bound to win. Just kidding. At the end of the second year of high school, a round of review for the college entrance examination sprint has already been carried out. They just commented on the provincial quality inspection paper a few days ago. 1. Most of the papers are about the content of the third year of high school. Wen Hao feels that he is a ghost if he can lose. The director of course also understands this truth. He glanced at Tang Qishan, and then at the shameless Wen Hao. He was about to say something when he heard the cold voice of the young man behind him saying, "All right, you work hard, I'm free." The author has something to say. Tang Qishan, this is the first time Luoluo cooks, I want to carry banana milk with me, buff bonus. Pocket, you call juicing cooking? At this time, an unknown brother Lu Chengxiao passed by. Oh, is this water cup a pendant? You shook hands and showed off all morning. Tang Qishan, Luoluo squeezed it by himself. Master Xiao, when I didn't ask. Wen Hao, the new student council president, I must win. Compare grades with me? Watch me crush you. Tang Kishan, you work hard, I am free. Tang Kishan's casualness is obviously not what he said. When the director asked Ji Gai to send the paper to the two, Tang Kishan was still looking at the bottle of banana milk in the upper left corner of the paper. The director's mind is naturally biased towards him. Seeing him absent-minded at this moment, he doesn't seem to take this contest seriously. He can't wait to grab the paper and write it for him. Wen Hao is the exact opposite. I was a little arrogant when I was relaxed, and I began to think about it in my mind. He imagined that when the final result came out, the dean of the school blushed anxiously, and threw Tang Kishan's single-digit paper on the ground and stepped on both feet. Showing disgust, and then holding his perfect answer sheet and repenting for his partiality, full of excitement and gratitude, he handed over the position of president back to him. Counterattack. Slap in the face. He won the domineering favor of the dean of the school, and has since reached the pinnacle of life. Throne. Not only Tang Kishan, who is handsome and cold in 187, can take such a protagonist script, but also Wen Hao, who is 170 and more than 200 pounds. The entire script has just been conceived in Wen Hao's mind, and Tang Kishan has already finished writing the previous choices and filling in the blanks. It took less than 5 minutes, and the answer was obtained almost immediately after reading the question, and even the scratch paper on the side was clean. In order to show justice, the dean walked back and forth in the huge student union office with his hands behind his back. Wen Hao has started to write questions. His style of solving questions is very conservative. Even if he did it once a few days ago, he seems to be afraid of making mistakes. Even the simplest choices at the beginning must be in the draft. Check the paper 2 or 3 times before you can fill in the answer with confidence. Tang Kishan was too lazy to write until he wrote the answer. Looking at Tang Kishan from Wen Hao's point of view is like seeing the tails of the cranes in their class. Desperate, Wen Hao smiles with schadenfreude. After more than 20 minutes, he also finished writing the previous choices and filling in the blanks. When he got to the place where he should turn the page, he turned his head and glanced at Tang Kishan again. Shut up, don't take a pen, you idiot. Wen Hao felt he was winning. In order to disturb Tang Kishan's mentality, and to attract the attention of the dean, he deliberately made his voice louder when he turned the paper, and his face was written come and see, it's so quick to write about the big topic later. Tang Kishan was really quiet and calm, and there was no movement. The dean glanced at the arrogant Wen Hao, and felt a little anxious. Wen Hao, be quiet, just let me out if you don't want to take the test. Like what? Wen Hao, looking at Tang Kishan again, he pushed the test paper in front of him to the side, lazily took the bottle of banana milk in his hand, unscrewed the bottle cap and took 2 sips. The whole person was calm as if he was coming to old age of. The director almost asked him to write the question, what's wrong? Don't rush to drink water, write the question first. At this time, Wen Hao just wanted to calculate the area of his psychological shadow. He didn't focus on the paper, and pricked up his ears to listen to the movement over there. Tang Kishan picked up the paper and handed it to the director. It seemed that because he hadn't spoken for a long time, his voice was slightly hoarse. Director, judge your score. Wen Hao smiled. Ha, what am I saying, don't struggle? No, it doesn't matter, where is it not, would you like me to teach you for a while? For the sake of fairness, I will also write this. Director, you have sentenced me for a piece. Ji Gai is also in a hurry, brother Shen. How about writing 2 more posts? The onlookers also echoed in unison, yes, even if the multiple choice questions are missed, you have to tick them. The dean, who was silently holding the red pen to judge the paper, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Amazing, awesome, I really didn't see the wrong person. Wen Hao, thank you, director, for the praise. The dean, it's so deep, I didn't expect you to have mastered the knowledge of the whole high school so thoroughly at the end of the first semester of high school. Full marks, especially the big questions at the back. You answered too much. It's beautiful, the method is simple, and the process is clean and not cumbersome. I'll take your answer sheet back and make a copy for the senior year of the second and third year of high school, and distribute it to the students as the standard answer of the provincial quality inspection a few days ago. Share. Wen Hao was confused. In just over half an hour, Tang Kishan not only answered all the questions, but also couldn't pick out a single mistake. At this moment, Wen Hao, who weighs more than 200 pounds, is crying like a fat man who weighs more than 600 pounds. There was still a little time before school was over. Tang Kishan stood up from his seat, casually took care of the slightly wrinkled school uniform, glanced coldly at the surrounding students in the student union, and said lightly, "Go back to class." "Good, President." Everyone speaks in unison. Wen Hao. Tang Kishan walked past him. His 187 size made Wen Hao have to raise his head to stare at him, and his imposing manner stood out. "Tang Kishan, I'm sorry. If the apology is useful, why should the police do it?" As soon as this idiot came out, Wen Hao wanted to bite off his tongue. The little clerks who just walked to the door couldn't help laughing, and a few boys who had been bullied by him quietly took out their mobile phones and took pictures of his tears, a moment of glorious layoff. When Tang Kishan returned to the classroom, there were still 10 minutes before the end of school. In the last class, the teacher asked everyone to study by themselves. Liu Chengxiao sat in his seat, leaning lazily against the wall. When he saw Tang Kishan come in, his peach blossom eyes stared at the bottle in his hand. "Tisk, what? I've been holding it all morning." Tang Kishan raised his eyes and gave him a look. "Lolo sent it." "Hey, when I didn't ask." "Spicy eyes, early in the morning. It's not a good thing at a glance." Tang Kishan chuckled, "Go away. Student council office." "Fuck, didn't you really go and take down that name? Just because the little ancestor said he liked it?" Tang Kishan's eyes are deep, and he can't see the slightest emotion. "I said, you are too used to her. Little girls can't be so used to it. It will be more difficult to serve her when she grows up." Tang Kishan doesn't seem to have any plans to discuss the education method of daughter-in-law with him. "What is my mother looking for from me?" On the day of the senior high school entrance examination, Shi Luo rarely felt nervous. Although after several exams, she felt that Tang Kishan had asked her to write at least 3 times for the types of questions she encountered, but she still felt a little uneasy. The last exam was over, and the voices outside the exam room were chattering about the answers. "It seems that I have been holding back for a long time." The English translation: "How do you write the New Year's money? Isn't New Year's money a red envelope?" "I wrote red bag." "Ah. Me too. That's great, that's for sure. Send points." Shi Luo pricked up her ears to eavesdrop, and was panicking at the moment. What she wrote was lucky money. "It's cold." "And the last composition in English, what did you write? Isn't it my dream?" "But our teacher said, don't always use model essays, the teacher will not get a good first impression after reading it, and give the lowest score directly, you must be ingenious." "Yeah, our teacher said the same, so I wrote that my dream is to sit on the roof of a Rolls-Royce and count the stars, but Rolls-Royce doesn't know how to spell it, and finally replaced it with pinyin. It is estimated that there is no major problem. My dream is to go shopping in a bikini. It's always new, I've never seen it on the street." Steady. Shi Luo's mentality collapsed. She really just simply wrote a regular dream. Afterwards, they discussed mathematics from English. Mathematics is the one she is least sure of. "I heard them say that the process of big questions is complicated and the data is difficult to calculate." When the number came, she almost died on the spot. In the evening, Tang Kishan came to the junior high school department to pick up people. Tang's mother said that she would celebrate the liberation of little Lolo. Shi Luo was a little flustered, and when he saw Tang Kishan, he didn't dare to look up at him. "When I was in the car, I lost the liveliness of nonsense on weekdays. Tang Kishan put his elbows on the edge of the car window, and looked at her from time to time. His face was calm, and he did not ask her about her exam. When the car drove to the door of Tang's house, Tang's mother Liang Shiyi was already dressed up and stood in front of the yard to greet her. She was holding holiday fireworks in her hand, and when she saw Shi Luo getting out of the car, she immediately twisted it with both hands. Sleeve. Warmly celebrate the success of the little princess's high school entrance examination. Liang Shiyi has always regarded her as her own daughter. Her own son has been precocious and calm since he was a child, and there is no chance for his mother to worry about it, and she is not very close to others. What a sense of accomplishment! Fortunately, when Luo was a child, he liked to be clingy and ran to their house all day long, which was considered to satisfy Liang Shiyi's wish to raise a daughter. When Shi Luo heard Tang's mother say the high school entrance examination was a complete success, Tang Kishan could clearly feel that her hand holding his sleeve tightened a little bit, and she usually likes to swell. The little girl pursed her lips and did not respond at the moment. Mother Tang, after a while, she slowly opened her mouth with a stiff expression. Tang Kishan had no plans for her to finish speaking. He lowered his eyes and squinted at the little hand that was holding his sleeve. His fingers were slightly white due to the strength, and he looked tense. Like a poor little pity who did something wrong. For a moment, he felt as if he could not see her frightened. The dinner was very rich. Most of the dishes were cooked by the chefs at home. Liang Shiyi also showed some cooking skills herself. At the dinner table, Tang's mother poured drinks for everyone, and Tang's father also finished his business early and went home to cooperate with his wife's girlish sense of ritual. Shi Luo was absent-minded and grabbed a piece of fish fillet. When she was little, she didn't really like the taste of fish. She felt that it had a strong fishy smell and was the most annoying to eat. Later Liang Shiyi secretly told her that the little girl eats fish is good for her skin and can beautify her skin. Shi Luo felt that she must be the most beautiful little princess in the world, so from that day on she kept shouting, "Eat little fish!" Tang Kishan was next to her. Tang's mother was excitedly reciting a toast. Tang Kishan turned her head slightly, and her cold gaze fell directly on Shi Luo. She didn't say a word, she didn't know the taste, and after a few seconds, her face became very ugly. Tang Kishan frowned. Seeing that her hand holding the chopsticks was frozen in place, she didn't dare to move, and her brows frowned even deeper. Fish bone. Shi Luo didn't say a word, but judging from her appearance, she probably was. Tang Kishan hurriedly fed Liang Shiyi's freshly filled orange juice to her mouth. "Drink, just finish it." Shi Luo's cheeks were flushed from the fish bone, and the beautiful little fox's eyes were filled with water vapor, and he bowed his head aggrievedly. Slipping down. Liang Shiyi hurriedly took a tissue to coax her in distress. Tang Kishan knew the reason. After a while, there was a plate of fresh fish on the clean plate in front of him. The cold boy pursed his lips and calmly pushed the plate to Shi Luo. "Don't eat." She pouted her lips with red eyes, and the whole person was so wronged. Tang Kishan put his big hand on top of her head, gently rubbed the girl's soft seaweed hair, and said lightly, "I picked a thorn." Shi Luo raised his eyes and looked at him, then pursed his mouth and lowered his head to eat. Liang Shiyi has quietly hid on the opposite side, took out her mobile phone and took a photo. It is rare to see such a well-behaved Shi Luo. Tang Kishan chuckled for a moment, then slowly said, "You guys start the test 30 minutes later, and the content of the test paper will be announced outside the field." Shi Luo buried his head in eating fish and dared not speak. "I taught you the problem before, remember the process of solving the problem." Tang Kishan couldn't help pinching her soft earlobes, and after a while, her thin lips parted slightly. "Do you believe in them or in me?" The eyes of the little princess instantly added a lot of light. "Trust you." "Okay, the exam is over, I'll take you out to play tomorrow." Liang Shiyi hurriedly echoed, "Go. Lolo, let Kishan take you out to play. Let him buy what you like. Don't save him money." The author has something to say. Tang Kishan, Mom, copy me a copy of the candid photos, thank you. Please leave a comment. Fry. Thanks. Thanks to 0416SWET orange milk tea through a grenade X1, mine X4. On the weekends, the streets were full of people, and the high school entrance examination had just ended, and there was an endless stream of students going out to play. Tang Kishan doesn't like to be lively, unless necessary, he will not take the initiative to appear in crowded places. In the early morning of the next day, the two were forcibly sent to the gate of the playground by the driver of the family. Tang Kishan. This playground just opened in Hengshi not long ago. It was supported by local wealthy businessmen and crocodiles, and it took the market. The two got out of the car one after the other, Shi Luo walking in front. She was wearing creamy white corduroy overalls and a warm yellow cotton t-shirt, her skin was fair and clear, and her soft and slightly curly seaweed hair was divided by liang shi and tied into long braids. The light yellow fisherman's hat slightly covers the smooth and full forehead, the whole person is full of cuteness, and the girly feeling is brought into full play. Tang Kishan is always wearing white tee black pants, a dark black peaked cap with a low brim, hiding half of his cold and handsome face in the shadows. Shi Luo's strides were excited, while he was quiet and steady, with one hand in his trouser pocket. After the driver delivered the person to the destination, he quietly assumed the responsibility of the first T-line station sister, and secretly took 2 photos and planned to go back to the chairman's wife. How can I think that the teenager in the camera will turn back? The bottomless eyes directly hooked his line of sight. The old driver has lived for such an old age, and for the first time felt that the eyes of the little boy were so frightening. He turned off the camera and ended hastily, thinking in his heart, this ticket must be finished. Wash your hands in golden basin. Tang Kishan retracted his eyes, raised his eyes slightly, and glanced at the bright signs on the playground deep in time. When he was still in place, Shi Luo had already poured into the crowd like a canary out of the cage. Tang Kishan slowly clung to her back, carrying her shoulder bag in his hand, seemingly slack and detached, but in fact locked the little canary in front of him within sight, daring not to take it lightly. In the morning, Shi Luo was scrambling all over the place, but fortunately, Tang Kishan didn't know what to do, and there was no need to queue up for each project. However, his patience for playing seems to be limited to this. He arranges trivial itineraries to ensure her personal safety, and basically does not participate in other entertainment projects. Leaving without turning his head is the greatest face he gave. This is because of her rare cry yesterday for her grades, and she was terrified, so she barely tolerated her company. The scorching sun in July makes people feel soft. Several projects ended, Shi Luo was sweating lightly, his cheeks were slightly flushed from the sun, and he was stunned. Go again. Luan Xiaoa, with his hands drooping beside him, looked up at him. Tang Kishan was relaxed and showed no signs of indulgence like her. Sometimes Shi Luo wonders if there is something that can make him give a little enthusiasm and make some waves, no longer calm and self-controlled, but flesh and blood. The girl was fascinated. The tall figure of the young man in front of her had silently blocked most of the sunlight projected on her face. She could easily open her eyes to look at him, while the warm yellow, however, the halo of his body drew a faint outline around him. He seemed to come from the light, but the dream seemed untouchable. Shi Luo rested for a while under the small shadow he blocked, and her spirit was much better. Thinking of yesterday, she suddenly asked softly, Brother Kishan, if Mother Tang hadn't asked us to come here today, where did you go yesterday when you said go out to play? Tang Kishan held the light behind his back, and the brim of his hat was lowered a little. The sunlight made his delicate jawline more angular. Afterwards, the young man laughed and said in a deep voice, one-day trip to the library study room. Shi Luo. She was tortured by knowledge in the study room, but she was slightly touched by him yesterday, but now that she thinks about it, she was like a complete idiot yesterday. The music of the ice cream truck was lively not far away, and there were many tourists waiting in line around the front, back, left and right. Shi Luo tilted his head and glanced over there, got up without saying hello, posing to go. Where? Want for ice cream? Tang Chi frowned deeply, and habitually disciplined her, that thing is too cold. It's July now, can I eat a small one? She pouted, looking pitiful and rebellious. After a while, Tang Chi sighed deeply, come back. Shi Luo took a step, and then heard him say, I'm going, sit here and don't run. Shi Luo sat on the spot and couldn't help but raise the corners of his lips slightly, and then suddenly remembered that he forgot to tell him about vanilla flavor, so he simply got up, intending to wait with him in the past. Isn't that Shi Luo? She took 2 steps in the direction of the dessert cart when she heard a clear and familiar voice behind her. She turned her head and glanced behind her, and it really was Wen Yu and her little sisters holding Stinky Feet. This Wen Yu has been at odds with Shi Luo since he transferred to another school, and likes to challenge and compete everywhere. A lot of times, Shi Luo thinks that Wen Yu's parents shouldn't have given her such a gentle and ladylike name. She thinks that the pouring rain is more suitable for her. As soon as the two meet, she will can thunder and lightning, be caught off guard. There are many people on the other side, but Shi Luo seems to have a natural aura in front of people other than Tang Qishan. Wen Yu can probably also receive the scrutiny from Shi Luo. They all dressed up before going out this morning, took off their school uniforms and put on makeup, but when they met, they found that they were almost all imitating Shi Luo's previous dress, but who was it? Dong Shi is frowning, and her appearance and temperament are not comparable to hers. Let's not talk about it. Even the brand and style are only similar, and you can't buy the same style. Everyone knew what to do, and they had a good time. After one morning, the makeup on their faces was almost scorched by the scorching sun. Now, when they saw the refreshing and beautiful Shi Luo, several people had expressions on their faces. It doesn't seem very good. But I have to say that her outfit today will be the direction they will secretly imitate in the future. Shi Luo played all morning, and was actually a little sleepy at the moment, and didn't have the energy to quarrel. He originally planned to go to Tang Qishan's side, and then went home after eating ice cream. Wen Yu and the others didn't give her this chance. Seeing that she was turning away alone, she immediately provocatively said, "Are you coming to the playground alone? Don't you want a friend to accompany you?" The little sister on the side immediately received her eyes and began to echo, "Some people are on the air and have a bad temper and have no friends. Ha ha ha, I can come to the playground alone. I've seen you for a long time." Shi Luo didn't want to talk about it at first, but the place where she just stopped was a shade of tree. She was willing to stay for a while longer than when they were naked in the sun. "Then you still don't live long, with so little knowledge," she replied with a sentence. The expression on Wen Yu's face was obviously deflated, and Shi Luo felt in a good mood. In fact, she also talked about Wen Yu with Yesun in private, and felt that although this person is always provocative, but because his brain is not very smart, he inexplicably comes with stupid and cute special effects blessings, and occasionally he is in a bad mood at that time. She took the initiative to send her to the door to quarrel, and it would take a while to see her deflated. Wen Yu is of course not able to admit defeat and retreat with just a few sentences, but the spirit of fighting more and more bravely is carried out vividly. Why, if you don't have friends, even your legendary family marriage partner doesn't feel wronged. Come to accompany you? Isn't it so miserable? Yeah, the end of the senior high school entrance examination is such an important day, I don't care. Maybe she secretly made a little girlfriend at school. Who cares about the old-fashioned doll kiss these days? Several people laughed. Some of the people present had heard of the rumors about Shi Luo, but because Wen Yu was transferring from Zikan to Hengshi halfway, she didn't know much about the past, only that the marriage object of the Shi family seemed to be it's called Tang Qishan, and I don't know anything about other backgrounds, let alone seeing it with my own eyes. Jujube has a big belly, she has never brought anyone out, maybe she is shameless and has no face, it's really pitiful, and she exchanged her daughter's marriage and money. As soon as these words came out, several others who habitually agreed with them all shut up. Wen Yu didn't know who Tang Qishan was, but they were born and raised in Hung City, how could they not know? Not far Chu Tang Qishan has been slowly approaching this side, he seems to have noticed the movement here very early, and the expression on his face is that of the most classic stranger in the legend. It upset her. A few seconds later, Tang Qishan came back to her with an ice cream, and he also helped to carry a backpack that was bulging by Shi Luo before going out. The backpack was plush, the little yellow duck style is matched with Shi Luo's yellow and white outfit. When the two stand together, there is an inexplicable sense of harmony. Wen Yu stared at it for a while, and when she came back to her senses, the tall, handsome and cold-looking boy in front of him had already put the cone into Shi Luo's hand. Vanilla. Shi Luo's eyes lit up, and there was no one else. You know I want vanilla flavor. Tang Qishan gave a light and then disciplined, you can only eat half of the small ones, it's too cold. Shi Luo pouted, but fortunately she was able to relieve her cravings. However, she had only heard Tang Qishan's name, and had never seen him, so naturally she couldn't recognize it. She just thought it was Shi Luo's boyfriend who had a puppy love outside, but she didn't even think about the marriage she had just guessed. Object above. Seeing Shi Luo's smile, she couldn't help but sourly muttered to the little sister beside her, I can't bear to buy even a big cone, I bought the smallest one, and I can only eat half of it. The phoenix man I was looking for wanted to climb when he saw Jeji. Shi Luo couldn't help laughing out loud, I didn't expect that I was already a tall branch in your eyes. Wen Yu's face was red and white, and she saw Shi Luo put her elbow on Tang Qishan's waist, look at what they said, they are reluctant to buy even a big cone, I'll buy 10 more after I finish eating. Tang Qishan's voice was low, with a small warning, I said hello, let's see which dessert station can sell you. Why? The playground is not your home, how could they listen to you? The young man pursed his thin lips slightly. Looking from the side, he could clearly see the slight curvature of the corners of his lips, I forgot to tell you that this playground is funded by the Tang family. In other words, it really is his family. Shi Luo. Wen Yu stood aside and listened on and off for half of the time, she couldn't see the interaction between the two, she couldn't help but speak, but her brain raised her voice, as if she was talking to Tang Qishan, classmate, who are you? Don't you know that the girl next to you will marry according to the family's wishes in the future? It doesn't seem right for you to be like this now. Tang Qishan heard the sound, and then turned around and glanced lazily. The young man seemed to be well-mannered, but his eyes were cold and distant. Hello, it's Luo's classmate, I'm Tang Qishan. Luo has a bad temper, please bear with me in the future. As soon as Tang Qishan said 3 words, Wen Yu only felt that her face was really painful when she put the provocative words just now. The sentence ended coldly, and he immediately took his eyes back. Shi Luo's heartbeat accelerated for no reason, his eyes were lowered, and he couldn't help laughing. Tang Qishan didn't know where to pull out a balloon, the balloon floated in the air, and a long white thread hung down from the bottom. In front of Wen Yu and the others, he pulled up Shi Luo's wrist. What to do? She asked softly in a good mood. Tang Qishan wrapped the white thread around her slender wrist, it's not easy to lose people by tying a balloon. His voice was warm for no reason, and Shi Logan couldn't help turning red. Wen Yu. Hot eyes. Several little sisters who knew Tang Qishan embarrassedly pulled Wen Yu away from them. A little sister who had gas out of her nostrils a few minutes ago began to quarrel in an instant. He is Tang Qishan? Why didn't you tell me earlier? You didn't ask. Do you still have to ask? Do you have any brains? How embarrassing! Who has no brains? Shi Luo pricked up his ears while eating the cone, and the expression of delight on his face should not be too obvious. After a while, the teenager reminded lightly, take 1 more bite, and go back and get a paper. Shi Luo. The author has something to say when you don't stop me. I'm going to kill myself. Luo Luo, acting in front of outsiders is quite good, reward. A warm reminder, he said that if he eats one more bite, he will be punished with a paper. Lolo awakens, reward withdrawal. Tang Kishan, Chaduxing, died. The pagan romance is about to end. Congratulations! Or ball comment. Begging. Thanks to 0416mine-x1. The results of the senior high school entrance examination are announced 2 weeks after the end of the examination. Students with good grades were trembling for 2 weeks, while those with poor grades let themselves play for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, the situation was reversed, the test was good, and the bad test was hemiplegia. This year's high school entrance examination school selection process is different from the past. Usually, I fill in the volunteers before the test, and directly admit to the corresponding school based on the scores after the test. This year, the method has been changed. According to the college entrance examination application method, the school selection will be filled out after the results are announced. The Education Office obviously underestimated the enthusiasm of the candidates to check the test scores. On the night of the results announcement, the query page completely collapsed. The query page crashed for 2 days, and the anxious parents also crashed. Later, I don't know which clever thing started to spread among parents, saying that school teachers can help to check the scores directly from the academic background, and then it is the bald head teacher of each class who collapses. 2 days later, the school held a volunteer application exchange meeting. The quasi-high school students who once thought they would be scattered after separation reunited in their original class. Now there is no exam pressure, and the results are all settled, and the crying and beating are resolved early at home. When it comes to the class, every student has his own final stubbornness. Look at the expression can't tell the difference between good and bad. Shi Luozheng and Fan Yuzhi Xiao or two get together, ready to pick up the phone and start playing games. Some of the female classmates over there who are usually among the best in their grades couldn't help showing off their superiority. Hey, what's your total score? Oh, don't mention it. One of them pretended to be sad, and frowned just right. I wrote all the last big questions in mathematics correctly, and it was only when I went back to evaluate the answer. I found out that the simplest question was chosen wrong, 3 points were deducted, and the math is only 147, my mother will scold me to death. Fan Yuj sneered, stupid, that question can be wrong, I got it right. Shi Luo couldn't help laughing, son is awesome, come, how many points did you get in the test? Say it and make dad happy. 60. After he finished speaking, he was still a little proud, why? Passed anyway. The perfect score is 150, and the pass is 90. The expression on Fan Yuz's face was obviously indifferent, damn, is the world so difficult now? Inflation is too fast. After speaking, the operation in his hand was as fierce as a tiger, the bullets ran out, and the opponent on the other side didn't lose half a drop of blood. The game is hot here, and the performances of the good students there are still going on. Me too. Before the senior high school entrance examination, my cousin had been dragging me out to go shopping, so I didn't have time to review. It was all naked exams. In the end, I only got a 149 in English. I don't know if it would be right. After that, it will have an impact on the assignment of classes to high school. Yes, I didn't sleep well on the day of the exam, but I was sleepy. I wanted to sleep after I finished writing it, and there was no mental examination at all. Hey, what's your final score in English, Maths, and English? 445. How could it be possible? You have 3 points more than me? Are you giving extra points to your minority? No points thank you. Several people were humble 1 second before, and then arguing again. When used to decide, unable to speak. Her grades are not very good, Zikin is partial, and in terms of education, she can't compare with Hengxi at all. Among her little sisters, her family background is the best, and they usually agree with her, but today I can finally beat her a lot in grades. Naturally he took up a shelf that was not seen on weekdays. When you walked away from this little who was showing off openly and secretly with a stern face, but she didn't take 2 steps, but she was getting closer and closer to Shi Luo's table by the door. Shi Luo raised his eyes and glanced at her. One of them didn't pay attention, he was boxed. He simply turned off his phone, and listened carefully to their performance. When you didn't pretend to be with her little sisters, Shi Luo couldn't help sighing. She worked hard, why did she have to pretend to be relaxed, or when you this kind of no-brainer looks more comfortable? He greeted her with great interest. What are you doing secretly watching? Come and play. The weasel greets the chicken for the new year, but I don't have a good heart. Wen Yu scoffed at her sudden enthusiasm. At this moment, Luo really couldn't help laughing. If you have to call yourself a chicken, we won't stop you. Wen Yu's eyes were widened a few times, and his eyelids were about to cramp, but he didn't follow his steps, and actually walked towards them. Wen Yu originally planned to stare and be reserved, but seeing Fan Yuge, who usually had no interaction with her, spoke up, she was still a little excited. In the end, she was alone transferring from Zikin to this school. I am very envious of the group of petty lovers around Shi Luo. Wen Yu has never played this game. Standing aside while downloading, Fan Yuge chatted casually, Shi Luo, I heard that you entered the 3rd middle school by yourself this time. That's not. It's awesome, as soon as the deep brother makes a move, it saves a building for your father. For Fan Yuge Xiao or such a playful 2nd-generation ancestor, if you want to enter the 3rd middle school, you can only rely on donations floor. Shi Luo's roots were obviously red for a moment. I also have a hard time writing papers every day. She raised her chin, just about to be proud, and suddenly remembered that when Wen Yu heard that she was going to take the 3rd high school entrance examination, she secretly poked outside and said, if she can pass the 3rd high school entrance examination by her own ability in the middle of the night, she was pooping on the live broadcast, the kind that stood upside down. Shi Luo's sly little fox turned his eyes and turned his head to meet Wen Yu's gaze. The latter obviously remembered the same thing, and his face turned red and white. Look at me. What did you say before? Live broadcast? Come, there are several live broadcast software in my phone, pick which one, you pick one, hurry up. Wen Yu stomped her feet angrily, I'll pick a seat farther away from you. As a result, they were seated across from a table. Shi Luo smiled quite proudly, but in the end she didn't really plan to bully her. Now that the game is downloaded, Wen Yu awkwardly starts to create characters. Girls pay great attention to the sense of ritual when playing games, and it is quite difficult to choose the character name. Hey, what name do I want to name? What are your names? Fan Yuge recited his proud ID quite proudly, your boy Xie Guangkan. Wen Yu, it's so dirty. Shi Luo couldn't help laughing. It was not easy for Fan Yuge to be scolded by Wen Yu. She laughed while teasing Wen Yu to name her. How about you name one, Dream Angel Xie De Jiao? I don't think Wen Yu actually analyzed it seriously. I think it would be better to remove Xie De Zuo. Shi Luo? So you think Dream Angel is not bad? Wen Yu nodded, then clicked to confirm after typing, it's cute. Fan Yuge twitched the corner of his mouth. What qualifications do you have to say that our family is Xie Guangkan? I would rather have a fight with Xie Bigfoot than a dream angel. Shi Luo's stomach hurts from laughing, and the atmosphere is inexplicably harmonious. After talking more, Wen Yu seemed to let go. Fan Yuge, a player who can be proud of 60 in the math test, will have to donate a building to reunite with them in the 3rd middle school. Head teacher. Wen Yu didn't have any restraints at the moment. What she was embarrassed to say in front of her group of little sisters, she muttered at the moment, I don't know how I got so bad in the test. English is relatively sure, and the result is that the composition score is almost deducted. Fan Yuj, damn it, I'll take half of it. What did you write? A dream angel. Dream angel, I just wrote that I want to wear a bikini and go shopping on the road, so innovative, and deducted all the points. Shi Luo's hand moved for a while. She was only nervous that day, and didn't notice that it was her who was wearing a bikini. She was so frightened that she cried and chirped in front of Tang's father and Tang's mother, and she was embarrassed. Shi Luo was so angry that he immediately changed his equipment, took a hand grenade bomb, and threw it at random, and directly turned his teammate Dream Angel into a box. At the beginning of the new semester, a rumor began to circulate in Hengshi No. The reason is that someone said in the school forum that Wen Hao, the new student council president who had been in office for 2 days before, stepped down due to force majeure. He cried that day and became an idiot. The small secretary of the big event posted the photo of him sitting on the ground crying on the forum, and the photo caused 1,000 waves. The rumors are even more bizarre. Some good people began to post in the forum to build high-rise buildings, adding fuel to the fire. I heard that day was very exciting. The current president heroically rescued the junior officer from the dire straits. He completed a high school grade 3 provincial quality inspection paper in 30 minutes, and his strength was crushed with full marks. Later, the dean of the school made thousands of copies of the answer sheet he handwritten, and it is still there. It is circulated in the private collection under the pillows of the major girls' dormitories. Isn't the current president a freshman in high school? Don't bully me that I don't read much. Can I write the 3rd grade in the first year of high school? Lao Tzu couldn't even read the subjects of the first year of high school. As soon as the discussion thread becomes popular, all kinds of monsters surfaced and made a few fools. Not only is the IQ crushed, but the physical strength is also extraordinary. I'm so heavy, I'm sitting on the ground crying. The picture above is from being beaten and crying. How about a gentle scum? His body looks like he has been trained, and he will kill you with a casual punch. I don't know which floor to start from later. The style of the post began to change, from mocking Wen Hao and silently changing to admiration and exploration of Tang Qishan. I'm tired, I don't love anymore. Trembling, there is a kind of love called letting go. Later the rumors gradually turned into rumors. It is said that there is a senior in the 2nd year of the 3rd middle school. The president is cold and difficult to provoke. In addition to being overwhelmed by IQ, it may also usher in a disaster. It will be time for freshmen to enter the school soon. The newly admitted students have not yet distributed school uniforms. Shi Luo is wearing a little black dress from Xiangjia, carrying a backpack that Tang Qishan gave her not long ago, and habitually stuffing it into the bag snacks. This bag was the new backpack from Ji family when she fell off the bed and lost her temper and told Tang Qishan in WeChat after the end. He actually bought it back and gave her as a gift for her further studies. Thinking of this, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. When I came to the assigned class that day, Fan Yu Jixiao or all gathered next to Shi Luo, and even Wen Yu was in the same class. The only accident was probably that Ye Sungxuan was assigned to the next door. Shi Luo poorly went to visit for a while, and then returned to his seat to sleep on his stomach. After more than 10 minutes, there was an inexplicable commotion in the corridor outside the classroom. What's the matter? What are you running? Many people started talking with their throats down. That, the student council seems to have come down to check the discipline. Sorry, what do I think it's the matter? There's something to check at the beginning of the school year. Besides, just check it when I check it. What are you afraid of? What are you panicking about? No, the big guy mentioned in the forum also came down. After a while, all the babbling chicks sat upright in their respective positions. Tang Qishan was followed by a large group of small officers with notebook folders, from the 1st class to the 7th class where Shi Luo was. The first few classes all passed through the door and did not enter, but when they reached the window of the 7th class, they stopped. The girl in the little black dress by the window was still lying on her stomach to catch up on sleep, Even if she was covered with a boy's coat, Tang Qishan could recognize her clearly at a glance. He has been standing outside the door with cold eyes for a long time. Some students in class 7 who are not very good in psychological quality already feel that they are so nervous that they almost vomit blood. After a while, something even more came. The big guy didn't seem to have any plans to move forward. He turned his steps and entered the class directly from the front door. The silence. Tang Qishan stood in front of Shi Luo. The little girl across the aisle bravely stretched out her hand and poked Shi Luo's arm, motioning her to stop sleeping. Get up quickly, she might be beaten into a fat man. Shi Luo was stabbed twice. He rubbed his eyes and got up from the table. His wide coat almost slipped off, but fortunately she reached out and pulled it. Men's jacket. The expression on Tang Qishan's face seemed even more unsightly. After a while, she raised her head, and the boy's voice was as cold as running water. Whose coat? Shi Luo didn't wake up at all, and now his face was stunned. Ah! The author has something to say. Fan Yuej, listen to my explanation, it has nothing to do with me. Can the little princess stop picking up junk in my drawer in the future? I still want my dog's life. Thanks to 0416mine x1.